and it's connected to my legs, which are being,
Oh, it feels so good. I know.
it's amazing.
Yeah, we have one too. And I used to do it all the time. I haven't done it in a while, but like if you can get it on exactly the right spot, there's like no more glorious feeling.
I didn't even know that they existed. This was totally news to me. And it, like, I spend at least an hour at night before bed rolling everything out. And every time I'm like, I need another 2 hours. Like, I'm not even scratching the surface of what needs attention.
Okay, it seems like you're on YouTube, but it's doing that weird thing again where it's like, oh, here we go. No, but now it's saying it's private though. Like it does this, it goes through this whole weird private thing before it goes public. Okay, I think we're in the right spot now. And as soon as somebody tells us they hear us, we'll get the clown show will begin. But yes, TENS units are amazing. If you can get it like on exactly the right spot, right? There's like almost no more glorious feeling than that, right? Like it's just
And
but
one
just
behind
so everybody knows, we're talking about TENS units and not something weird.
to some people, TENS units might be weird. I didn't even know these things existed.
Yeah.
It didn't even enter my radar until yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Multitasking.
I used to have that when I was, okay, so we're heard. When I would go to the chiropractor for one of my injuries, they'd put the TENS unit on like when they were done, right? And then Laura has one. So that was how, yeah.
Now I have one.
Now you have one. They're very like kind of old school technology. They're very primitive, but they look like an old Walkman or something. I love it. Yeah. I used to have that when I was,
Sorry, that happens every time.
okay. All right. Well, it seems like we have an audience of 6 and 4 of them are speaking. So I guess the other 2 would be us. So we are kind of ready to go here. So, all right. How are you?
I am. I look forward to being a lot less overwhelmed. But I'm good. I have a racquetball coach now, so I'm improving,
Oh,
getting my Kaizen on, which feels good.
very good. Yeah, I look forward to that day too, but it's like the horizon. It's a line, it's the imaginary line in the distance that recedes as you approach it, right?
Totally. It's like transformational work. Like every time I think look, I'm doing so much, then capital L life gives me like a trillion more things to transmute.
Right. I know.
With the
Yeah.
to-do.
And it seems like the only way to sort of like get out of that is to like pull the cord in a like a dramatic way, and like that isn't always the best course of action either, right? That like elusive balance thing or boundaries thing or whatever. Yeah. Anywho, all right.
Yeah.
Well, while we're waiting, go ahead.
How are you?
I get sweaty and stinky, you know. Just came in from a walk. I've been like relegated to just walking for the last couple of weeks because I have this persistent groin injury that I finally figured out where it's happening, like what the cause of it is.
Okay.
So that's good. That's the first step. I think I'm probably gonna have to like, I think in order to heal the injury, it's gonna require me not working for a couple of weeks at my other job. So I have to get to a point where I can do that. But I figured out like what the source of it was, which I wasn't sure for a while. I was thinking that I was injuring myself exercising either through like poor form or not adequate stretching or something like that. And then I had a couple of weeks, a few months back where wasn't doing much physical stuff at work, and it seemed to go away. And I got back to running and everything felt good. And then I didn't really realize that the pain came back about the same time I went back to doing physical work at work. That happened before I realized it. And then last week I was at work and I was doing a specific motion, and I realized that was like the amount of pain that happened with that motion more than anything else, like that's the thing that's causing this. Right. And so, but it's hard for me to do my job without that motion. So I've been trying to figure out ways around it for now, but I think even if I find workarounds, like until I can actually not do that for a little bit, it's not going to heal, right? But at least I know what the genesis of it is now, because there's nothing worse than like not understanding what the cause of the thing is. So anywho,
Congratulations.
yeah, so I've just been walking and doing arm weights and stuff for the last few weeks. So which is boring for me. I want to run and be free and do all that stuff, but I'm accepting it hurts to swim.
Can you hula hoop?
No, because it's like my hip. It's like my groin, my hip flexor, my adductor, right? Like it's really, I can pretty much just walk as far as things with my lower body. So anywho, okay. Well, while we're waiting for the rest of the class to file in, do you want to hear about remember a few years ago, I told you about a fantasy I had about a cartoon you would make with Sadie for word salad, where we would do you remember it? Okay. Well, it's in Crete.
Let's add it to the list of because over the years there are many animations that you decide I'm going to make.
Right. But the last one was about word salad, and we're still on word salad, right? Yes. So it was kind of like in the beginning, it would just be Emily and Sadie, who's like Dani's alter or something, doing like some balletic moves, like some, PK turns to fouette around the salad bowl, and then reverence and, whatever, something presents word salad. I can't even remember what I just said. Right. And, you were like, I was like, can you do that? You're like, yeah, but it takes a long time. So we need somebody to hire me for animation to do it. But today when I was on my walk, I added to the fantasy. So now it would be a circus tent, right? And and Sadie and Emily walk up to the circus tent and pull it apart, and we start to hear the circus music, like the da 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 da. And as we look inside, and we see like clowns circling the salad bowl and tossing words into the salad bowl, right? And then we go into the circus tent when they're done with this, right? We eat the salad. Now we do our PK turns to fouette and everything around the side, right? And we're about to say we present word salad, but then we both throw up, and like Brett and Heather and Jordan Peterson and all these people who say all these word salad nonsense things like come flying out of our mouth, right? It got very extreme. It's hot outside today. So anywho, if somebody can make a super chat big enough to buy Dani's time to animate said cartoon, like clown show, circus, fantasy, like I can't tell you the amount of times that the circus song goes through my head these days, and it's just because of what we're living in. But I feel the need to like add that to the lore of whatever our cartoon characters are doing. Anywho, well, and now we have 44 in the room. Go ahead. Yes.
Oh, 44, a magical angel number. Ross keeps telling me about these apps, like I don't know if it's AI or whatnot, that you just type in, like if we uploaded my illustrations of you and me in our word salad bowl, and it was like, okay, they walk into a circus and blah, 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 blah. I guess that there's some sort of AI that can make it. I don't want anything to do with it. And I also don't know that if I do that, then all of a sudden, whatever illustrations I upload become Sam Bankman-Fried's intellectual property.
Right. Yeah. So like I said, large super chat, and this fantasy can be ours. And thank you to everybody for coming through for us last week. That was amazing. That was so exciting. Thank you so much. Okay. So now that my fantasy has been, that's it, right? You like it? This is what I think about. Like once I'm at heat stroke level from being outside in the middle of the afternoon, exercising often.
This is why I love collaborating with you. And this is why I love how we're generating so many super chats that it's soon going to be possible for us to do this.
Right. Dani is the super chat whisperer. Okay. All right. So we have a dazzling array of nonsense for you today.
Wait. Before we get into our dazzling array of nonsense, one of us went to an SFI lecture last night that was totally ridiculous. It was about machine learning.
Oh, the video came into my feed. I didn't watch it, but I saw the thumbnail.
I go to these things and I'm like, I don't know if you have this, but sometimes I'm like, are we crazy? Are we full of shit? Like, am I just looking for things that don't really exist? Or I'm like, you know when like you pick your face and there's nothing there, but you pick it enough and like now you have a big zit. So
yes, I was a tweaker. I'm well aware of this one.
So I kind of thought it was going to be like that, but no, it was freaking gold. So she starts off with talking about how machine learning is racist and algorithms are racist because Black people aren't showing up the same way in their algorithms. And it was weird to me that she kept using the term racist as though she was like projecting some sort of intent, not like the data sets that emerge from AI are racially biased, but like just the using of the word to me felt extremely inappropriate for an inanimate mechanism. But then she was going into misogyny. So it was like, AI's misogynist, AI's racist, and even though we have the idea of equality of opportunity, it was so interesting how she was trying to like rebrand equality of opportunity into equality of outcome, but by using the equality of opportunity moniker and John Rawls' work around it. So she was saying that like to enhance diversity in college admissions, you have to tweak the algorithm to adjust for its inherent racism and misogyny. Then, of course, she had totally. But then she moved it into, and I took notes like a good little nerd. She moved it into our democracy, and yes, she said our democracy multiple times. And she was she drunk?
No, did you get drunk? Were you playing the drinking game whilst you?
I wish I was. She said you can't have democracy without large-scale computer models, which I thought was fascinating. So apparently we didn't have democracy in the 1800s.
Well, then all the more reason not to have large-scale computer models, because who the fuck wants democracy, right?
Then she was promoting gerrymandering as a good thing. She was citing Noah Yuval Harari as someone we should listen to. And what was also interesting was like she was separating herself from the tech overlords, and it's like you are the tech like you're representing the tech overlords. So it was very like over the top in its like woke identitarian bullshit that like I was thinking I was probably like my sights were set too high and expecting to receive that from them, but that is exactly what I like. She delivered.
Yeah.
Like, it's over.
Yeah. It was not a nothing burger. It was like Le Royale with cheese, huh?
100%. And the piece, which is going to tie us into two of the clips that I'm sharing today, because I'm noticing a new piece of the op, is at the end, she said the way forward is to educate yourself and educate those around you. And we're going to get deeper into this with the clips that I got, but how they're social engineering everyone to be activists. So the takeaway was like, we need to be like social justice tech activists to help them fix their problem. And she was also complaining that it cost $100 million for chat GPT to like program its machine learning in a certain way. And it was like, oh, the billionaire has to spend some of his hard-earned cash to like create a better enslavement system. Like it was just lame. Like all SFI stuff is lame.
All right.
That's it.
I'm glad it was juicy. I'm glad it was a satisfying zip popping and not enough. All right.
It was satisfying zip popping.
All right. Well, excellent. Okay. All right. So should we start with well, what clip do you want? Let's start with the clips that pertain to what you just talked about.
Okay, they're super, super gross. So fair warning, everyone. Let's start with Schmachtenberger.
Got it. All right. Here, let's see. Hold on a second. Let me look at I have the list of timestamps that, because I had them set and then my computer restarted. So I realized now they're not.
Want me to pull them up for you?
Hold on a second. Where did I just had everything ready to go and now it's hiding again. Now it's hiding again.
Patience, tribe. Okay, so
Okay, here
Schmack
we go.
starts at
Schmack,
8:16,
8:16. I just found it at the same moment. Okay, here
and
we
it goes until you puke.
go. Okay, 8:16. Sounds good. All right. I'll try to hold my alcohol. All right, here we go. Okay. No.
So, and before you share the screen and pause it, let me just set it up.
Yeah.
This is a clip taken from a larger podcast that he was on. And one thing that I'm noticing is he's doing these small podcasts with like a couple hundred followers, but then they get like, tens of thousands of views. So there's something fishy. So he's talking about, I think they're called the Milgram experiments.
Yep.
So he's educating the public as to what the Milgram experiments are in his explanation as to why people comply with evil. And then the podcaster just decided to animate it. So just to catch everyone up to speed.
Yeah, I've seen the after school podcast before. I think they often do that. So, okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
So the precedent is civilization's end. Their own growth plays a major role in their own end. But for the first time in history, we have a single global civilization where all of the products we depend on take 6 continent supply chains to make. There is no Chinese civilization and US civilization, and all the US stuff depends on Chinese stuff, depends on cobalt that comes from the DRC in Africa, depends upon oil that comes from the Middle East, et cetera. And so all the manufacturing of our needs comes from a global civilization that is in the same process of self-termination. It doesn't have to go that way. We could go a different way with it. You can imagine that none of the Nazis wanted to defect, because if they defected, the idea was they would be killed, right? If they could coordinate and all defect, then there wouldn't have been the genocide in the first place. The ability for people today to realize that the trajectory of the world that we're on is not the trajectory that they want, that they are not willing to be complicit with, that the possibility of changing it is a more potent possibility for meaningful contribution than anyone has ever had in terms of scale. And that's a more worthy use of their life and attention than whatever's currently engaging it. That, I think, is the only sane assessment.
All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to see the full conversation,
I'm glad he let us see Daniel at the end, because my God, it's like his head and his beard is like 2 tiles from a Masonic floorboard. They're like the black up here on the white, right? Like I don't even understand.
Who does he look exactly like at this point?
Well, Karl Marx.
So like, he's not even trying to downplay it. It's like, let me look more Marx-like.
Right.
So he said, fixing the problem is more important than what anyone else, whatever else we're doing with our lives is not more important than what he thinks we should be doing to conform to a profoundly sick globalist society. There's never any talk about, how about we stop relying on China? How about we bring manufacturing back? How about we use our own oil, which we have a surplus of in Texas, and they burn off because it's all such a freaking scam? How about we don't need to buy a new iPhone every year so that we're raping the DRC for their cobalt? Like, none of those things are considerations at all. It's just like, here's how the world is going. Globalism is happening. What you're doing is totally unimportant. You need to be becoming the activists that we are telling you need to be.
Right. So it's kind of like he secretly friends with Brett. Right? Like leave it to us to decide for you what you need to do. Right? Like, it's just, yeah. I wonder if he's an evolutionary biologist.
Of course he is. That's why we listen to him.
Right? No, I mean, I wonder if Schmachtenberger is also secretly an evolutionary biologist, because
I'm sure
they're the
he
smartest
is.
people in the world. Yeah.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
So picking up on this, can you play the PBS clip? Now, this is 2 weeks old at this point, but I just noticed the through line in this, like whatever phase we're in with the op, it's like no one else's career path or mission or preferences are relevant.
Right.
Everyone needs to be activists for the causes that we tell you
Right.
need to be activists for. So this time code is 258.
258. Okay. All right, here we go.
Fair use.
Interested in making a lasting impact in your community?
Oh, it's
When
a
you donate to
27
Austin
second
PBS, your
commercial.
generosity enables us to provide.
Well, we'll just turn the volume off, and I have a glass bead sort of experience happened when I was reading your list of clips this morning. I read your list of clips. I saw one of them was about climate change, and then a book I'm reading that is not at all about climate change had one comment about climate change, like literally the next sentence that I read when I went back to the book. And so I'm going to read you what it said about climate change when we're done with this. Okay, here we go. Oh, no, this is another commercial. This is PBS, right? This is
To not have commercials.
right. They used to rely on their donor drive. They remember the phone in.
Yeah, but wasn't that all a scam? Like same with
Pacifica and Casey and all those other
same with Wikipedia. Every time you go on Wikipedia, we need your donations. It's like, are you kidding with your corporate sponsors?
Looks like, and what the industries are that will be employing our children in the future will be around climate.
Can we, I messed up. Just go back like 5 seconds. That was on me. So this woman is, she's explaining to us why we need climate change curriculum starting at the first grade.
Okay.
It's happening, and this isn't just a bunch of surprise things that are going on, and scientists know what's going on. But the other more important piece is that our economy is going to change. What the future looks like and what the industries are that will be employing our children in the future will be around climate solutions.
We also spoke with a high school art teacher in New Jersey about the impact of working climate change into her art lessons.
I feel that it's very important for students to know about the realities of the circumstances that they're living through. And as educators, I think we also have an obligation to teach students and guide students through the difficulties of not only understanding this, but also emotionally processing the severity of the situation.
How can teachers?
She sounds like she sounds like she's about to break into tears and in any second.
She's so freaking unstable, like talking about projecting her own mental instability.
Yeah.
But I mean, Hegelian dialectic much? Problem, reaction, solution? Let's indoctrinate our youth with so much fear and terror such that it's abusive. And then the solution is, well, we have to come in our art classes with more indoctrination to deal with the fear and anxiety that we've bestowed upon our children.
The gymnastics podcast that I listen to for the gymnastics content and suffer through for their ridiculous political takes. She always has this like fever dream that like some gymnasts will do some sort of like dramatic climate change statement kind of floor routine. Like she likes the idea of combining political activism with choreography. And when I'm listening to this, it's making me think of right. The climate change, right? Remember when we were kids, it was like there was the Muppet floor routine and the Back to the Future floor routine and Star Wars floor routine, and then like now it's like the climate change, like the Ukraine war floor routine, the Israel Gaza floor routine, right? And of course the Beyonce floor routine, right? Yeah. So
yes, of course.
All right, here we go. Keep going.
Yeah, please keep going.
Like that one, Carolyn McGrath, help students navigate anxiety and stress about climate change.
First of all, we need to be honest with them and we need to be truthful. And we need to let them know that the science.
He has said that at least 3 times in this interview. We have to be honest. We have to be truthful. If we're being honest and we're being truthful, we don't really need to say that.
Correct.
That's what we say when we're lying.
Right, correct. And it's also an acknowledgement that they're not honest and truthful most of the time, right? So, yeah.
Scientists have really good predictions out there, and we have a good sense of what kinds of things are going to be happening into the future. But I think to ease anxiety, aside from being honest and making sure that our children are well informed, we need to tell them about the types of solutions that exist already and foster their creativity and imagination to help them consider what kinds of solutions can be built in the future. And I think the best way to ease anxiety is to foster positive actions and also thoughts about large-scale solutions that they can contribute to as children and in the future.
So everyone's whole life has to become about fighting climate change.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, are we done?
Oh, we are done.
Okay, so I'm going to read you. So I saw your email came in. I looked at your things. I saw one of them was about climate change, and then the very next paragraph that I read in my book, which is A New Science of Heaven by Robert Temple, which is about plasma. This in this chapter, he's talking about the Van Allen radiation belts and how they were discovered and whatnot, right? So whether it was good for, okay, so he's talking about there was a huge bombs exploded in the atmosphere, in the ionosphere, and that helped them further understand how the Van Allen radiation belts worked. This helped scientists understand the radiation belt better. Whether it was good for the Earth and its inhabitants seems not to have been considered. The motto of the people launching the rockets and satellites seems to have been a heedless, when you gotta know, you gotta know. And the hell with what the consequences might be of blowing up all those atomic bombs above people's heads. The damage done to the atmosphere by this crazy and irresponsible project, one of the bombs was truly gigantic and incredibly dangerous, forms part of the sad history of mankind's progressive destruction of the ionosphere by military organizations, which I believe is the true cause of climate change, much more important than any carbon dioxide emissions, right? So that was right after you had sent that. And that's to the extent that man-made climate change exists in any way that they have explained, that would be the cause right there, like not your car, right? Not your lawnmower, not the cow farting, not you farting, not even me farting, even though, right? So I thought that was an interesting sort of insight, right? Because my guess would be that a lot of the issues that they're calling, the activities that cause climate change, to that point, there was no evidence that that was going on. And so it became sort of convenient that there were other things that started at about the same time that was post the, ionosphere and the atmosphere being blown holes into. So things are rushing in and out that shouldn't be and all of that kind of stuff, right? So and also, we don't even understand the place that we live, right? And that's the whole, where does this being honest and truthful about climate change start? Is there are we going to discuss the shape of the Earth, whatever you think it might be? Is there going to be a discussion about that, or are you just going to continue to put the globe in the classroom with no discussion about why, when you look down, it seems flat, but then just the globe is there and there's no conversation about it?
I'm not sure if you've seen any of the interviews I've done with Joseph Postma. He's an astrophysicist who writes books about fraudulent climate science, and he came at it as a non-believer. He fully bought into the climate science thing, and he's like, well, I'm going to study it so I can help bring awareness. And then when he studied it, he's like, 100% of climate science is reliant on a flat Earth model, and zero of the climate science that they're using. And he says that the realm of climate science is only 30 years old, that it is all reliant on flat Earth. And you can't have a round Earth and have their math work in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I mean, it's so funny how many of their industries are built upon, if you ask any pilot how they solve for the curvature of the Earth and they're plotting, none of them can answer. They're like, we don't solve for the curvature of the Earth and whatever it is. So yeah, that's interesting.
That was the discovery that got him booted out of his entire profession.
A lot of those kinds of people. You have a good collection. All right. Okay. So we're done with PBS. We're done with Schmachtenberger. Where do you want, should we let's do yours and then we'll do mine, since we've already done a couple of yours. You have two more. Which would you like?
Tulsi Short
Okay.
It's really for you. It's my birthday present for you.
Oh, my
Early.
birthday's still a few weeks away.
Well,
But you know, maybe there'll be opportunity for other birthday presents between now and then. Okay, 10130. Got it. All right, here we go. 10130. Let's see. 101.
The Second Amendment protects the First Amendment.
Exactly.
Right?
That in an environment, they foresaw that at some point we would face an increasingly tyrannical government seeking to take away our liberties and our right to free speech.
Here we are.
And that the Second Amendment serves as that check on the power of those who are abusing their power and turning our country more into something that resembles a banana republic and a dictatorship than one that represents a truly constitutional republic.
Like one guy, the president, signs away generations of women's sacrifice and work.
Exactly.
By himself.
And what recourse do we have? The only recourse that we have, yes, we can challenge this, and there are people challenging this in the courts, which is one of those co-equal branches of government that serves as that check on power. But also it's through exercising our right to vote. And there are too many people, and I keep harping on this, because there are too many people in our country who don't vote.
I know.
Whether they think that their vote
40%.
won't count.
did you hear what she said before Banana Republic?
Which thing that she said?
I don't want to ruin it because it's specifically for you. So can we scooch back a little bit?
Yep.
I spaced out as well, but I know it was there.
And our right to free speech.
Here we are.
And that the Second Amendment serves as that check on the power of those who are abusing their power and turning our country more into something that resembles a banana republic and a dictatorship
Keep going. Keep going.
than one that represents a truly constitutional republic.
She said constitutional republic instead of democracy. Or first she had first it was our democracy, then it was democratic republic, and now I think this is the second or third appearance she's had in a row where she says constitutional republic. But if you look, she seemed to have to look over her shoulder to like check the whiteboard to remind her that she's supposed to say constitutional republic instead of our democracy, right?
Well, because Roseanne's the only one besides us who I've heard speak to this.
Right.
So I wonder if Roseanne herself didn't give her a little lesson.
I think that's certainly possible, but I'm still more, the shift happened when she was speaking for those pocket constitution people. So like she may have just even read the pocket constitutions and been like, oh, I guess I should call it that. And people were like, yay, you came around. And so they watch our show and they're like, we finally won them. Yeah, no, right. And it's funny because whenever I do this, I feel like, and it's not even like I'm excited about a constitutional republic either, but you know, that is technically what it's supposed to be. So like, let's get this right. Are we continuing or was it?
We're continuing because I want to just go to 103:14 because I want specifically your response to what they're about to say.
So watch this until 103:14.
Correct.
Okay, here we go.
Like one guy, the president, signs away generations of women's sacrifice and work.
Exactly.
By himself.
And what recourse do we have? The only recourse that we have, yes, we can challenge this, and there are people challenging this in the courts, which is one of those co-equal branches of government that serves as that check on power. But also it's through exercising our right to vote. And there are too many people, and I keep harping on this, because there are too many people in our country who don't vote.
I know.
Whether they think that their vote
40%.
won't count, or they think that, well, it's just the government is too powerful, we don't matter anymore.
I feel that way.
Our founders envisioned a country where the power would exist within the hands of the people, that we are the ones who get to decide who works in our government, who we vote for.
And how we decide to change.
Correct.
Because that's how we got rid of slavery, because we had the ability to change, ingrained in our Constitution.
That's right.
When we realized something was wrong, we had the ability to change it.
And
they don't like that either.
That's it.
Okay.
What is your take on their push for everyone to vote?
Well, I mean, of course, that's the most important. They give zero shits who anybody votes for. Just they want people to vote because it's the agreement to go along with the system. Like I told you about that the argument that my sister and I had, like the night that Trump won the election in 2016, right? My sister, like, I can't even remember what happened, right? But my sister like went on this sort of tear about, like, my sister and my dad both accused me of being a Trump supporter, right? Because I didn't vote, I was a Trump supporter. And I was kind of like, no, actually, you guys are the Trump supporters because you agreed to participate in this. And part of, just as you reminded us in the last election or whatever, that, right, that if you participate in this thing, you have to accept what the outcome of it is. Like, I don't think I need to accept outcomes of things that I don't want to participate in, right? So, like, if you vote, then it's kind of like if you agree to the rules of the game and then you lose the game, you can't be mad about and say that the rules aren't fair. If you think the rules aren't fair, say so before you start or don't participate, right? And so I think that they really want people to participate in the sham of democracy or of the constitutional republic or of the idea that, like, this is the part that they can never get around, right? Is that it is literally, you cannot grant someone else the right to do something that you don't have the right to do. And the problem with government is it develops these separate managerial classes that have a different set of rules than the people who voted them in, right? And you can't give someone a right that you don't have, but that seems to have been forgotten in this whole exercise of democracy or representative democracy kind of thing, right? And, and they fall back on sort of the straw man or the false idea that people who want to live in a voluntary state or a quote, who are quote anarchists don't like rules. No, it's they don't like rulers, right? That's the issue. It's not that people are necessarily against the idea that we have some decorum, that, that some agreements about what is okay and what is not. It's just how those become enforced, right, is where the argument is. And they never want to talk about that, right? Always just like, you have to try and change things from within the system, not ever a conversation about, like, just the idea that a system like this exists is the exact problem, right? So the other thing, though, I don't know what women's rights or whatever women's hard work and suffering they were talking about.
I think they were talking about the trans stuff, the chest feeders, the putting men in women's sports.
I saw an interesting clip come into watching this just reminded me that I meant to go back and see, but an interesting clip came in my feed sometime in the last few weeks of Tulsi Gabbard talking about the pain and suffering of finding out that she was infertile and learning to find, satisfaction and joy in life otherwise, right? And what's interesting is it reminded me, and almost like in this weird way of sort of this idea that I had, right? Like this thought that popped into my mind when I was watching her interview that Chloe, what's her last name? The detransitioner girl, Chloe, detrans, Chloe, her name is Chloe Cole. Like, when Tulsi was interviewing her, there was this moment where they looked at each other and I'm like, wow, these two really look alike. And Tulsi has a level of compassion and sensitivity for this person that I've only ever seen her have for, like, military families and things like that before. And it brought up the idea in my head that maybe Tulsi had some transgender issue kind of thing. I'm not saying she did. That is not what I'm saying. But that thought occurred to me. And then when I saw this clip come up that was suggesting maybe that she had struggled with infertility, which I understand is a problem lots of people suffer from, like, it reminded me of, like, that prior thought that I had had. Like, it seems like Tulsi is at her most compassion when she understands the experience, right, kind of thing. And so she, when she talks to parents who've lost children in one of the Middle East wars, or when she was talking to Chloe Cole, there was a level of compassion extended there that she does not extend in any way to people who either disagree with her or have an experience outside of her ability to understand. Mm-hmm. Right. And that made me think of that. So that's interesting that they were talking about a trans thing there. Tulsi's a big woman.
Is she?
She's big. I mean, I don't know how tall she is, but she's big boned. She's a solid woman. She's not like a petite, not that there's anything wrong with not being petite, but like, you know, when you're like a 5'2", 105-pound woman, like there's probably less of a case to be made that maybe there was some gender funny stuff going on. I'm again, this is just like, you know, these thoughts creep in sometimes when I'm assessing people and like what's really going on with them here. And there was some sort of connection between the two of them, like the way they were looking at each other. That was interesting. When I watched that interview, that was, you know, informative and on some level, even if it's just on a synchromistic level.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it when that interview came out. I wonder if, because they use the military as lab rats for all their injections. So I wonder if she has put that together in terms of like, if she's dealing with infertility, like what have they injected her with?
Well, but even just also like, I suspect that she is from a long time. She's been part of a long-term project that whether its origination was somehow like a military program, or whether it was a cult, like that human potential movement kind of stuff we've seen her as being involved in, or whether it's something even stranger. There's like a million different kinds of things going on, both on like a governmental and corporate kind of level, that a lot of the circumstances of her life that have created this thing that she is now, like she doesn't understand sort of the origin of some of the things she feels and believes, right?
Yes.
And I think, you know, there's two ways to look at Tulsi, and I see a lot of different comments. Like I see a lot more, you know, sure, there's some people who are falling in love with Tulsi for the first time right now because she's saying all the things they like, right? But there's a lot of people who are pretty jaded on Tulsi at this point and have been more traditionally jaded for a while, but now they're starting to question some of these things. And a lot of them just see her as a grifter now, or someone who's just purely in pursuit of political power and will switch positions or say whatever to get that. Right. So I think that like, we're to the place now where there's like one of two options with her. And it's what I just described, that people are thinking that she's a grifter or just purely after political power, or, and this is one that's harder to explain to a lot of people, but the combination of things that she passionately believes to be true, to me, is beyond just the grifting or saying the right thing in order to get the job you want, and speak of a trance-like level of mind control on certain topics, and knowing some things about her background. Like I would have probably compassion for the possibility that a lot of things were done to her outside of her awareness or consent, right? And then there's probably things that she did consent to. Only when the more things that have happened to you that you didn't consent to, the more likely you'll consent to more wrong things being done to you, right?
Well,
If you haven't cleared that.
in the military, she wouldn't want to prove herself
Correct.
by taking on more.
Mm-hmm. Again, like the whole idea, you know, like, and I understand that there's probably a lot of people that disagree with me out there, but the whole idea that being of service to your country is honorable when the things that your country is doing to other people in other countries are horrible things is evidence of mind control to me.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's possible to be in the military and active war and not be under some sort of mind control, to be able to commit those atrocities upon your fellow humans.
Correct. Okay. So just before we move on to your next clip, just on the Tulsi tip right here, right? And this just goes what I was just saying. I'm not going to play it, but right here's Tulsi on trigonometry this week. She's like, and this is part of the other reason I believe it's mind control, because she's not even doing a good job at disguising how the way she's being, right? It's everything, all the bad things are Democrats, and it's been like a really long time since she said anything even semi-critical of the Republicans, because it's very clear who she's trying to win over, and she's selecting her words very, very carefully. Like if a person was doing a good job fooling you, they would at least sort of balance some of their newfound, criticism for the side that they used to be on with some caution and concern about the new side that's embracing them. None of that. It's just straight Democrats bad, Republicans good, right? Like it's crazy.
So what I picture, I don't know if you remember when we were competing in gymnastics, Fritz had like a super strict no sugar rule.
Right.
But before our last event of every meet, he would give us candy because it was like, you need to go full out. It's your last event, like whatever you need to get you through. I feel like, or think of like someone who's running a marathon, and then
Right.
once the like finish line is in sight,
Right.
it's whatever it takes to get across the finish line.
Right.
That's what I feel like. I feel like now that she's hooked in on Trump, she's kind of in a like, whatever it takes for me to get on that ticket.
Wow. So yes, I fully take and appreciate the analogy. And I never had that experience with Fritz. So that must have been something he stopped doing in the year or two older that you are. Because when you were in like class 1 when I was still in class 3. So okay. Fritz wasn't really going to the meets with us, or maybe he would come to state, but that's sort of it. So like Deborah and Mike and Heidi and Juan and the different people were like in charge of us. And that wasn't happening. I was under the pretty strict no sugar rule at home. But that was something my dad pretty much liked anyway. So that wasn't like a hard sell for him other than soda. My dad did like to drink soda. So my dad had a harder time telling us no about the things he wanted to do, but he wasn't interested in eating sugar. So there was no sugar except for at my mom's house on the weekend because my mom let us break whatever rules and whatever. Right. But interesting though, because, like, I don't know if Fritz is still alive, but the last I heard about Fritz was, when Shannon told me he was in the hospital and he'd had both of his legs amputated and all of that kind of stuff. And she went and visited him, and I thought about going, and I didn't end up going. But I think he had his legs amputated because of diabetes. I think he was diabetic. So the irony of someone who like really tortured young girls on some levels about their weight. And like, I remember the first meet that I went to with him once I got to optional level, right? The first meet time I traveled out of town and stayed in a hotel, right? And we ate, we went to dinner in the hotel restaurant, and he wouldn't let us order off the menu. He ordered salads and baked potatoes for all of us with no anything on the baked potato, no dressing on the salad. I had a horrible meet. Like I had to drop out halfway through the meet, and my parents took me home because I had no energy, because like I was used to eating something different before meets, right? And this was the first time I was out of town. So we were in a hotel with him. Yeah. And it was the first time with him because before that I had always been with other coaches who were more either more lenient, or that like we were still really more under the care of our parents, even if the coaches were there. Right. So that's the irony of him succumbing to a condition caused by your relationship with sugar, right? Insulin is kind of interesting.
That's cuckoo, because I grew up, I mean, we were both in gymnastics so young, so I didn't really have a sweet tooth because it was nothing that I was allowed to have. So he would give us a piece of chocolate just before our last event, and I would have to gag it down because it was too sweet. Like I didn't want to, but he wanted us to have that burst of energy. But otherwise we were all on the Eat to Win diet.
I had that. Yes. I had the Eat to Win book. I know all about yes, I was on the Eat to Win diet as well. But that's interesting because like for me, I had so much adrenaline going at meets anyway, that was not what I needed. I needed to control my power, not like I was way springier in meets. And so like the fucking worst trick to do during a meet is your punch front step out, because you would go like you'd over rotate it.
Yeah, always over rotate during meets because it was that adrenaline,
that bounce, right? So like, yeah, So that's interesting. Okay, you have one more clip, and then we're on to mine.
This is really painful, and I want to apologize because I know that our tribe doesn't love it when we play mainstream clips. I have never seen the Jon Stewart show, so maybe he's always like this, and I just had no idea. But I was looking at a lot of different coverage of the Trump trial, and I find it kind of fascinating to watch like the leftist mind control, and I didn't actually realize that it was this extreme. Maybe this is just how Jon Stewart always is, but I thought of everything, like of everyone we could touch in with on the Trump thing, I thought this was pretty interesting to witness.
All right, fair use. Here we go.
want to rinse my.
Okay, which is not lock her up, but yes. Okay, so to continue or we're done?
Oh no, continue. So this
Okay.
lock her up thing, I don't know if you've seen, this was the leading news story.
Did you know you're supposed to?
So that's not true. He said, if that were the case, you would be in jail. So it's different, but continue, because his TDS is kind of
like, this is the same point that's being made now by people on the right about Anthony Fauci and his testimony in Congress, right? And I'm guessing that we're not going to see those same moves about that.
Oh, hell no. But we're about to get a big George Soros sponsored pitch. So continue.
To the George Soros part, I don't want to get, I'm afraid we're going to get a copyright claim for playing so much of this. Do we know where the George Soros part is?
Yes, it's coming up.
Okay.
Officer, I thought there would be thunder snow. 20% is still a chance. Don't take me away.
Do people still watch this? This is terrible.
How many hit? Look, it has 4,047,582 views. The reason why I think it's important to see this is to understand, like, why we're so confused. Them choosing not to create a fraud case in demonic court, which has its own languaging, has nothing to do with whether a fraud was actually committed. And I would assume that Jon Stewart knows that. This feels incredibly disingenuous. And like this whole thing is reaching. I'm totally fine if you don't want to continue, but basically he goes on and on about how our justice system is this bastion of wonderfulness, and thank God we have court. And then he goes on to lambaste the media for fomenting division, as though he's not the media who's fomenting division. And I also watched a number of lawyers and law professors' analysis of the Trump case, and they said it was a freaking joke kangaroo court that was like completely out of bounds on any level. So that's all.
Yeah. So, well, also it's just a boring show. He's boring. It's that, right? He's boring.
How reliant he is on his cute little facial expressions. It seems, like I said, I'm not that familiar with it. It seems to be terrible. That's his shtick.
It wasn't always this bad, but as the quality of the content of what he's saying has gone down, he's become more exaggerative in that way, right? But yeah, no, he's being disingenuous. And then also, like, I don't, like, even people I know who like absolutely hate Trump and are firmly on the left and normally have no problem with unfair things being done to him have actually been like, yeah, this you don't want to go down this route because it's not really smart to go after your political opponents this way and whatever it is. So like there's no level on which this was the right thing to do. Right, kind of thing. It's not, they were inventing crimes, and I read somewhere the other day that they literally changed a law. They went back and they retroactively changed a law, and the change to the law would last for only 1 year so that they could get Trump for something that the statute of limitations had passed on. But after that year, it will go back to being the way it was. That's all you need to know. And then that's right. So anywho, all right. Okay, we're done with Jon Stewart. All right, so I have a couple of clips. I have do we want to start with the clip that I won't play about Brett and Heather, but I'll tell a story about it and why I'm not playing it. The clip from Dave Smith, Chris Cuomo on Paul Bet David. Another post from Paul Bet David, or like the new most insane person I've ever seen, which is Nellie Bowles, who's Barry Weiss's wife, or as she says it, Bear's wife. Where would you like to begin?
Nellie Bowles, Barry Weiss, not a quinky dink. Let's start with Dave Smith on PBD.
All right. So Mr. Nick today commented on our post, the post that reminds people of this show, that he's been waiting for my analysis of this, like this, right? And so I hate to break it to you. in a season of like unsatisfactory things that happen in podcasts, that this might be unsatisfactory. I don't really have much analysis of, I listened to the whole thing, right? And I listened to it and I was like, okay, I just spent 3 hours listening to this and I don't know if I have anything to share. And then at 3 hours and 4 minutes and 29 seconds, it came, right? But it isn't really in relation to anything that was discussed during the podcast. But for me, it's the point of why he was there, because why would a person volunteer to go into a situation where they knew everyone was going to be against them? They knew they were going to tell endless lies. They were going to be embarrassed. Who would sign up for this kind of flogging? The only thing that all through it, I'm thinking he must be trying to get his job back at CNN, right? Or something like that. He must be sort of like proving his bona fides to get back in the club after he got his smack on the wrist for, whatever it was. And then at the very end, it became clear why he was there. But in terms of the content of the podcast, I would say all it really did was there was a level of satisfaction of like watching that. But like, I realized that I'm to the point where like, I'm not as satisfied by that stuff as I used to be, because I'm just bored of this entire topic. So it was like, but I will say this, Dave Smith did a really good job. Dave Smith has balls and Dave Smith does not back down. And I don't agree with Dave Smith about some things, some of his political positions I'm not necessarily in agreement with. Some of his political fetishes in terms of the parts of libertarian he's really nerdy about and likes a lot, I don't care about, but I think he's an honest actor. And I think that like he follows through on his commitment in terms of like what he says his position is and what he's going to do about it, kind of thing. And so that part is satisfying, that, okay, like, even if you disagree with them, this person seems to be an honest actor.
We got a super chat. You didn't even have to for Glendy. We love
you. Yay! Yay! Thank you, Barbara.
Barbara.
Okay, so, but I think he did a great job.
But I want to go on the record in saying I don't buy that Dave Smith is a good actor, because he's getting, and I know we talked about this last time, I'm just waiting to see what the play is, and we know he has kids. This is a lot of exposure for someone who's only speaking truth for the sake of speaking truth.
I didn't say I thought he was a good actor. I thought, right, to this point, he's been an honest actor, right? To this point, he does not, when he gets the big moment, he does not back down from what he says on his own small show.
Correct.
So far, right? But I agree with you that there's a reason system has been comfortable with allowing him to do this. And so I'm waiting to see what that setup was. I think that maybe they were wrong when they thought that RFK would be able to win him over, right? Like, I think that he's the person who really put a kibosh on the idea of the Libertarian Party putting him as the candidate. Right. Yeah. And whatnot. I think they thought they were going to get him with that because they thought they'd be able to tempt him with expanded ballot access for libertarians and all of that kind of stuff. So thus far, I think he's an honest actor. I'm not saying that means ultimately that he's a good actor. Right?
I'm not buying that he's honest right now. This is like I said, it's just he's getting a lot of mainstream exposure in a very controlled system that doesn't do things by accident.
I definitely agree with you that we should be asking, what's the catch?
Correct.
Right? What's the catch? And maybe to this point, he has been an honest actor, but the thing that's going to get him caught up is just around the corner. So we will see. So I will always keep my eye open, right? But he went for it. He didn't hold back. He didn't play nice to get along and hope that like, when Chris is back on CNN, he'll have a panel job as the one who disagrees. He didn't do that, right? He embarrassed him. So okay. So I have the moment though that I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but when it came, I knew what it was and I knew why he's there and I know what his role is going to be. All right, hold on a second. Here we go. Wait a second. Let me fix
I wonder if this is a humiliation ritual. Like if this is kind of Cuomo's 33 degree, like instead of kissing a bunch of buttholes, they're just letting him be humiliated by Dave Smith.
Well, that, but sure, but also it's like, okay, like, you know, if you're going to play a role in whatever we're doing going forward, can you sit there with a straight face and say, like, in the same sentence, I'm on ivermectin, but I don't think ivermectin is good, which is like essentially what he was saying over and over.
He was an idiot, and he never once apologized. Like, he never once. It's kind of amazing. Like, there's zero humility in
Right.
on any level.
That's the requirement for the job he has, though. And so they needed to see that he was up to the task, right? My favorite was when the person in the audience asked if his doctor was a veterinarian. That was the best moment, right? Okay, but this is the part that I didn't know I was waiting for until it came.
7?
You think it's only so? Did you
I
go
think-
to Bronx?
I think
Did you see
that-
how many
I
people
think
showed
that
up
if
to
he
Bronx?
gets
Oh,
more-
wait a minute.
Yeah, I
minute.
did.
Okay, how
I
many
did.
people show up when Biden goes out there in campaigns?
Not as many, because he's not does not have the celebrity value that Trump
It's not
does.
about not as many. I think what's happening in America, there's a part of it. If it was a Republican establishment candidate that was doing all of this bullshit that's taking place, taking advantage of the other guy, going after the guy on the left. So let's just say the other guy's an anti-establishment Democrat, RFK. Let's say RFK is the Democrat right now, and Trump is the Republican. And if Trump was the president today, and
Latest poll has Bobby beating Trump.
if Trump
That's why he was there. Latest poll has Bobby beating Trump.
What poll?
Right? I don't know. He didn't say. Right?
It's like Fresno County.
Right? But like this is so like I mean for me, like I'm hearing this and I'm like, what role is he going to play in this?
Correct.
Right? And when it becomes that the scenario, and again, I think there's parallel timelines or tracks of reality that these people are on, and they're shifting, they're able to sort of, it's like being lanes in a highway and deciding which lane you're ultimately going to cross the finish line in, right? He's there for the reality of RFK becoming the establishment candidate. If RFK becomes the establishment candidate, either because it becomes clear that like you're already seeing things about the Democrats are canceling the convention. They're going to hold the convention online, right? There's, you know, and some stories say that it's because they don't want to deal with the Palestinian protesters. Some say it's because Joe Biden can't get through more than 2 or 3 sentences. And, you know, you need a studio set up to control his reality and all of this kind of stuff. But if it becomes clear that for whatever reason, he's not a viable candidate, or if they pursue whatever is going to happen with these court cases and the sentencings with Trump in such a way that they're going to try and take that away from the people, but sell them on. But you know, like now we'll have Bobby and Joe Biden or whatever it is. He's there for that eventual possible reality, right? Because look at what he was calling for the whole time. What was his main point? What was the main point he kept driving home the whole podcast?
I don't know.
He wants a 9/11 style commission to catalog what happened during COVID. Right?
Okay.
Remember that? And kept bringing that up.
Okay.
Right? And so this is the only issue that Bobby is good on, and that Bobby has been better than both Trump and Biden on, is COVID. And so this would be right. And so this would be like a way to sort of see Bobby was right about this. And now, but it's those shams that the 9/11 commission was like full of shit. It was like government and industry.
Warren Commission. They're also fake.
Correct. In fact, including the one that they did about studying the Warren Commission, they're studying the Kennedy assassination, all that kind of stuff. Right. But this moves, if you move what happened during COVID to the center of the political discussion, which it isn't right now between Trump and Biden, because both of them, for different reasons, want to avoid talking about it.
Correct.
Right? If you make that the centerpiece, then obviously Bobby's the best candidate if that's the only thing that matters.
Unless we brought Moskowitz into the conversation, which no one else is picking up.
Right? Which no one else, even the people who warned us about Dustin Moskowitz, don't seem interested, right? So, okay. So to me, that is what he is doing. He's kind of in an ongoing open audition for what his role is going to be if the Bobby way becomes the way it goes.
I mean, I feel like he's failing his audition, whoever he's auditioning for.
But so is Bobby. That's not going to stop it from being a thing. I mean, we have the most embarrassing set of candidates ever.
Correct.
Right. So it's almost like whoever fails the worst is the obvious pick.
Although I will say Trump pulled us out of the first time he was in office, and I do think that is a high priority. He also brought a lot of manufacturing back to the United States while he was in office.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the point that Paul Bet-David was making right before it went to this thing about Bobby's head in the polls or whatever was that, like, you're trying to make this false equivalency that these are both terrible candidates. But if I look at one person's resume and I look at another person's resume, like at least there was something that was accomplished here, and here there's nothing. That was the point and I would agree with him that there is more point. If you're arguing a case of why someone did a better job, there are more points on Donald Trump's resume. That doesn't make him a good candidate. It just makes him a stronger candidate than Joe Biden, right? So yeah, so point taken. So anyway, Mr. Nick, I'm sorry that probably wasn't the satisfying analysis, right? I think I'm just really tired of COVID. Like, I'm just tired of all of that stuff. It's hard for me to listen to that, even when, like, if all that was happening like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I might have still been like, had a small heart on for it, but now it's just like limp Willie all the way. Right.
I'm with you, and same. Like I'm not interested. Although I do think there's value for people who are wanting to establish things in the public record and still pushing for justice,
and also for people whose wake up time was during COVID.
Correct, and I shared the same satisfaction in hearing Dave pummel Chris Cuomo, but. Not that Chris Cuomo, I had any esteem for him before, but this was embarrassing. Like, this was such an indication of such like a low vibe, spineless lack of character or self-awareness on any level. So it's like, whatever the play is, because they're both getting a lot of play.
Yep.
On a lot of the shows we watch. So there's something going on with the two of them, whether they're partnered in on it or not, they're both being used for something larger right now. So just like you, I'm just keeping my eyes on the both of them to seeing where this is going to go.
Maybe where it goes is like the one thing that Dave is not critical of Bobby on at this point is COVID, right? And so if the play is to move COVID into the centerpiece is like what people care about in this election, and Cuomo's point is to try and keep a lot of energy around that, right? Then then that's the least amount of disagreement that Dave's going to have. So, whatever, he can come in with his one criticism about Bobby or whatever it is, if he's supposed to be the challenging person on the panel. But if COVID is the thing that is mostly cared about, then all of Bobby's other positions don't matter as much to the media and the general public.
Yes, but it's interesting that this happened, on Patrick Bet-David's show when he's a very vocal Trump supporter, and with Dave, who came out as a very vocal non-RFK supporter. So is PBD not read in on the op to know why he's being used to allow Chris Cuomo on the show, although Chris Cuomo's been on PBD quite a bit the past few weeks. But do you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I think
strange bedfellows.
Strange bedfellows, but I think some people... Like, you have people who there's like a blob of things that are priorities for people, right? And there's like maybe 30 different things in the blob, and the part that's in the center of the blob might be different for each person. But if there's some overlapping things that are on the center of each person's blob, even if they have some disharmony around some of the exterior things, right? And I think Paul Bet-David plays into
Patrick.
So yeah, I always want to call him Paul, but I don't know. Patrick Bet-David plays into a certain grain of what's going on, or a certain strain of what's going on. And I'm going to show you that with the next post, because the next thing I have is from Patrick Bet-David as well. And this was a community post that he put on YouTube yesterday.
Cool. Very good.
What made America the greatest country in the world? Remember, he said that in that podcast. So, I'm America first. I'm America first, right? That's his big political position is America first. So he is saying that he's not asking, what do you think made America the greatest country in the world? He's not even asking if the idea that one country would be the greatest in the world is a valid question. He is telling us what it is. And he's starting with this.
Is this a multiple choice question? And what does pride in loving mean? I'm not an biologist, so I don't know what that means.
Correct. Right. So I'm sorry. It is a question. The way I read this the first time, it looked like he was stating what these things were. Okay. So this is a question he wants people to answer. So I guess
he's leading because he put the first three in the past tense as though they don't exist anymore.
Right. Right. But for him, but you also have to, these seem to me like he doesn't say in no particular order. So in my head, it feels like this is what he's saying. These are what it is for him. Which is it for you? That's what it feels like to me.
No, what does pride and loving mean? I don't understand what that means.
I mean, I don't think it's like the anything to do with the gay festival, right? But I think that's something people took pride in being loving towards one another, or in being, I don't know, but I don't really know. But to me, right, the fact that like the first two things he thinks of are God and capitalism, and then freedom. Freedom comes after capitalism and God.
He's a multi-millionaire.
Well, he's a multi-millionaire, but he's also a religious person. And one of the strains that's really coming in right now are all of these people who are Christians, and he's a Christian, right? I don't think a lot of these people would be opposed to some sort of, moderate Christian theocracy.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that to me feels like that's the op. That's this Christian op that you and I have been talking about for a while.
Right, and that's the role that he plays. Is his idea of a great America is one that has a whole lot of religion in it.
I feel like this is some coded shit right here.
I'm telling you, that's right.
Because faith, dream, and hope are all caps.
Right.
Everything else is sentence case. There's something else being communicated in this.
This got my attention on many levels, right? Like on many levels, he doesn't use, these are not what his posts usually look like. He does a community post all the time, right? Here's one that's like this. He tells people, don't fear making a difference and having a positive impact on. That's the only other one. And I guess he does do things like this. So, and here's another
He's
religious one, right?
not, what is he? He's I know, but what is his nationality? Armenian. He's
Armenian and Assyrian. He's from Iran.
Most of the people who because we all grew up in the same area, most of the people I grew up with from Iran were Jewish.
Well, I mean, there was a I think it was Ari Shafir. The Ari Shafir piece on Howie Mandel was really great when he was
that
like,
was awesome.
And by the time enough people covered it that I decided not to cover it here because so many people did. I like to do a little bit different stuff. But one of the things he said also was that Iran was a good place for Jews, right? Yeah, Ari, that was another part of the conversation, was that Ari knows a lot of Jews that live in Iran, and for them, they feel like it's a safe place to live.
Well, I've also heard that Iran and Israel are like super buddy-buddy, regardless of what like the propaganda is, but that they've always been tight. Actually, Roseanne and Tulsi talk about that in their podcast as well.
Well, they definitely did movements against Iraq together at one point in time. So they have been allied in the past. I think it has depended on who's in charge in Iran, whether Iran and Israel are secret buddies or enemies, right? But I'm sure that there are strains that even when there's this overt sort of discontent between them, that are still allied and doing certain kinds of actions and whatever it is. But I feel like this right here, whatever the fuck this is what he's a part of. This is why he's a part of this group. This is what he's bringing to the table.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And so now we're done with Kristen Smith and Dave's Chris
I wish
Cuomo.
Dooms was on, because I'm sure Dooms would have some sort of like stenography deconstruction of like all this, like what are the numerical values for all those capitalized letters? Like what is really going on in that?
Right. Yeah. Let's get some gematria experts in on that. Okay. So I saw this video come up into my feed, right? How experts control you. And so I was already excited because when I saw the title, I already knew what our critique was going to be, right? And then I listened to this, and I'm not going to play a clip from it. People can go listen to it. You see it's right there. It's on that same podcast they've been on like 200 times in the last 3 weeks or whatever it is. But I actually agreed with many of the things they said in this clip, right? And so I was kind of disappointed because I really wanted to just burn them, because for some reason I still do get some satisfaction out of that. But because I saw this, I'm like,
Might that be the reason?
Right. Well, I still remember, and I almost thought about going and pulling the clip when he believed back in 2020 that free speech needed to be only for the experts and for the academics and whatever it is. And so
I saved that video. I downloaded that and saved that because I know one day they're going to try to wipe it.
Right. We need to go find the exact clip and like have a channel that just plays it on repeat. Like we should do that. Right.
Yes.
But actually, so here, this is me being honest about the fact that I was already deciding how I wanted to clown them before I even listened to it. When I listened to it, it was like, okay, actually, they made some points that you and I have even made before, and what they probably got. But this is my problem with them. And this goes to like the same thing with like satisfaction. And could I even ever be satisfied? Right. Like, I want him to acknowledge publicly and apologize for the fact that he once said that only experts should, basically, I might be paraphrasing, but basically the case he was making with Tristan Harris is that absolute free speech needed to be only for academics and experts in order to protect. It was like the craziest thing I'd ever heard, right? So like he hasn't apologized for that, right? He hasn't stated why he was wrong, even if he has figured out that he has. But also, like, this shit just still makes me mad, right? Like this idea that 2 or 3 years ago, you thought experts should control you. And now you don't. And now you're an expert on how the experts were trying to control you and why they shouldn't. Like, there should be like a mandatory period of time of like, sit down, shut up, and learn from the people who've always known that the answer is that experts should not control you. And maybe in 5 or 10 years, then you can have a role in all this. But until then, like, get a job. You know what I mean?
It's also their primary shtick. It's like,
right. I know, yes.
Emily and Dani are criticizing them about, and then flip it as though it was their original thought, and they're criticizing the entities who they're pretending not themselves to be.
Right.
They do that all the time. It doesn't matter which issue is going to come down the pipeline. They're going to continue to play that game.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so that was a little like, just me being honest about what I really wanted to do, but then decided not to do it, but just kind of did it anyway. So I don't know. Anywho. Okay. So now we're on to my new favorite, like absolute cuckoo. This is Nellie Bowles, right? This is Barry Weiss's wife.
Bear's wife.
Bear's wife. And so this is another one that the title of the video, like you know how sometimes there's a different title in the text than there is on the thumbnail.
Yes.
And on the thumbnail is like, she's not part of the tribe anymore. She's been kicked out of the tribe. Right. And in my head already, before listening, I'm already deciding what I'm going to criticize her for, which is like, well, she's still part of the only tribe that actually matters. And so what the fuck are you actually talking about? Right. Okay. So there's a few cuckoo spots in here. We'll start with one and then we'll see about two. Here we go. All right.
Young reporter at the New York Times, full of enthusiasm for her employer, is approaching a series of news stories. Her name is Nellie Bowles. Nellie, put us in the picture. I want to talk about your wonderful new book, the story you have to tell post this moment, but let's start at this moment in time. So you are there, this is your dream job. What happens next?
It was the dream of dream jobs, like beyond the dream job. It was where I was going to stay my whole life. There was no question in my mind. And it went very well for a few years. And I was doing big features and...
Isn't it weird how she sounds and her affect is exactly like Barry Weiss, like they're becoming the same person?
Why are they the same? They have the same job. They both put out books. Like they're just dating themselves.
Right. At least it's weird, right? It's just, this is like one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
Okay.
Getting praise for it, which I live for, obviously.
Right. So her dream job is working at the New York Times and getting to do what she wants and having fun and being praised for it. Being praised is what she lives for. Right. Like the amount of like honesty that there was in this podcast is like, I was coming here to like, laugh about the fact that like, okay, who cares if you get kicked out of the tribe at the New York Times because you're still part of the bigger tribe. Right. But there were so many gems in this that just, yeah. Okay, here we go.
And I was having a lot of fun, honestly. And then as 2019 and 2020 and then 2021 came, the tenor in the newsroom changed.
So the first hint that you talk about in your book came before 2020, didn't it?
It was 2019 is when I first noticed it.
That was the first hint that something was wrong in our reality was in 2019.
Story about
Oh, tell us more.
which was
Wait, hold on. You just I just talked over the important part there.
The first hint that you talk about in your book came before 2020, didn't it?
It was 2019 is when I first noticed it. I did a story about PragerU, which was a viral video.
So not until she did a story about PragerU did she realize there was something wrong.
So was she in a coma like 2015 to 2019?
Well, she was, I mean, must have been, but like, look at the irony here, right? Is not that when she realized people who were telling the truth were being smeared, she had a suspicion something was wrong, right? But when at that point, the most fanatical pro-Israel group on the internet became part of the disinformation, like started to be criticized by her disinformation editor or whatever at New York Times, suddenly she was aware there was something wrong. So not when it was happening to Alex Jones, not when it was happening to Milo Yiannopoulos or whoever else or whatever it was, when it was PragerU, because, right? Okay.
Filmmaker.
Like I said, she's still part of the bigger tribe.
With a conservative bent, going on campus and making viral videos of kids on campus saying silly things. And it was a business story because it was a big media company that hadn't been written about by the Times, really. And I did a profile of them. That was my style, which was a little bit making fun, a little bit straight news, and turned it in and expected it to sail through like most of my stories had been doing. But this one was different. And I got some notes from different kind of editors at the paper, and it was that I needed to add more about disinformation.
I don't believe her. Why did she just say, I got notes from different kind of editors? Right. So she wasn't getting notes from editors. So was she getting notes from the CIA officers who were assigned to the New York Times? Because that was just a lie. Basically, if you're getting notes from your editor, you would say, I'm getting notes from my editor. And I don't know who else in a newsroom would be giving you notes on your story. And so she's mentioning multiple people. She's getting to this. And eventually she's going to call them disinformation experts. Right. But right. But yes, your point is taken. Okay.
I needed to emphasize the disinformation angle of PragerU. And I was sort of confused because, I knew about disinformation, of course. I knew what it was, but nothing at PragerU was a lie necessarily. It was...
All right. So it's funny to me that she's not bothered by someone being called disinformation until the disinformation being called is on a pro-Israel group, first of all, right? But it's interesting what she says here.
Conservative, but it's not a lie. If someone is pro-life, that's not disinformation. That's not a lie. That's just someone who has a really different political belief than you. And I found myself explaining this to Times editors, and it was really odd to be in this position. I was like, that's not, a conservative argument is not a fake argument inherently.
Was it a particular disinformation team, or was it all the editors generally?
Across American newsrooms, there emerged around this time these disinformation teams.
Across American newsrooms, there emerged around this time disinformation teams.
They emerged organically like a virus or a rash.
And it was often an editor, a couple reporters. In this case, the person I was interacting with the most was a consultant for whatever reason. But there were also disinformation reporters.
From the CIA, you were right. You got that right. Yeah, okay.
Right, but I love how she's just brushing it off. Okay.
For whatever reason, yeah.
Sure. Who were operating at the paper. And they were kind of fact checkers, right? And they would write stories that were like, this is false and this is false.
Did you say pause?
No, I didn't, but I said something. But fact checkers don't write stories. Correct. Fact checkers just check facts.
And the goal of the disinformation movement was to label something disinfo and then get it deplatformed. Because what do you do with information that's false? what do you do with lies? It shouldn't be on Facebook. It shouldn't be on Twitter. It shouldn't be allowed on Google results. Like this was the
right.
It's a movement that pretends to be editorial, but it's extremely political. It's a very tangible goal, and the goal is it wanted to get Prager off Twitter, off Facebook, off Google, off YouTube.
And she couldn't allow this because she works for the tribe.
Because if it's a purveyor of disinformation, then you can argue for that. And so anyways, in this time, 2019, honestly, I pushed back a little bit and then I went along with it. I was like, fine. So they wanted me to add in the Southern Poverty Law Center description of PragerU, which was basically that PragerU videos might lead you to then be algorithmically recommended by the YouTube algorithm to more conservative videos. And then you might even see more conservative videos after that. And so then you would be exposed to right-wing lies, is the idea.
The Southern Poverty Law Center is another part of this ecosystem that we need to just spend a minute on. What is it? What was it originally, and what did it become?
Originally, it was an amazing organization. I mean, I'm not to butcher the history, but it was an amazing organization that worked in the South on racial injustice cases. And when I was growing up, I donated to it. Like, I remember when I was in high school and college, I would give to the SPLC, the ACLU, and then and PETA. I would give just like $5 a month or something because I thought it was so cool. I liked
That was back when she had a dick.
Okay, so this, I mean, there's another part that was fascinating, right? So she goes into talking about the downfall of SPLC, and now they're just whatever they are. But I love this idea that the problem started when she noticed it.
That's how it is with all these people who are shoved to the front of the room. They discover these things years later, and we all need to bow to their expertise.
Okay, so here's the next part, and then we'll just, okay.
Sort of mob activity.
Armed left.
Okay, hold on.
Was fake news. They said that.
Hold on. She's finishing explaining.
Sort of obsessed with me because.
And fact checking as well. These veteran reporters.
Yeah, I mean it's hilarious because they're these, in the case of, I mean, most of them at that time, they're like these sweet 27-year-olds who have, I'm sure, good intentions.
She's explaining the disinformation expert.
In my case, they became sort of obsessed with me because I was really interested in a lot of the things that were going on in 2020 and that in 2021 that they didn't want reported on. I mean, this group pretended that Antifa was fake news. They said that it was very important within the Times to pretend that Antifa was not involved with the BLM protests at all, and that they had no involvement with the riots and the fires.
Antifa is short for anti-fascist, and it's basically a violent group. Is that fair? They encourage sort of mob activity.
Armed left-wing group of protesters originated in the Pacific Northwest, became a sort of style of protest across America over the last couple of years, where everyone wears black, where the idea of escalating to violence is accepted. And it was very important, at least for a couple of years, to very much deny that Antifa was happening. When I tried to go up and report on Antifa taking over a neighborhood in Seattle, which I thought was a pretty funny story, they took over the gay neighborhood of Seattle. That's, as a gay person, I felt I had a right to go and see.
This is why I want to cover it, not because they're raining terror all around the United States or whatever it is, but because they're taking over the gay neighborhood. Like, these people, it's so me-centric. It's so, it's a dazzling display of everything's been about me my entire life, right? Okay, there's a few more minutes that I want you to hear just because of how she introduces the idea that she's married to Barry Weiss, right? Which is kind of funny. Okay, here we go.
See what's going on. And doing that and wanting to do that, even when my colleagues heard I was pitching that, editors were kind of interested, like, okay, cool. My colleagues became incensed. And it became like this crazy thing that I wanted to go up there. And why did I want to go up there? And when I came back with a story, and that story got printed, then basically
$7 and I'm going to show you how to start making offers on vacant land deals in 4 hours. Even if you're...
They openly were calling me a fascist, and they openly were saying she's out of the tribe now. Like this, it was through doing a little bit of reporting that was unacceptable to basically the disinformation movement.
The story then, you went to the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, which is this section of Seattle that basically became controlled by protesters, and there was no police presence during that weird summer of 2020. And what did you find? What was in the story that they found so offensive?
Well, I confirmed that there were Antifa members there, obviously, running the borders and organizing the protests. And that was really important to not confirm. That was considered, I mean, remember when the Tom Cotton op-ed was withdrawn and the editors all resigned over it and things like that, one of the corrections that was given to the Tom Cotton op-ed was that it wasn't true that Antifa was part of the BLM protests. So that was a really important lie for the Times to uphold.
So did anyone try to prevent you publishing that story, or did it manage to get through?
I actually was blessed with very nice editors, by and large. My actual boss at the Times was great. The leadership of these institutions, like the leadership of Harvard, or, well, in Claudine Gay's case, maybe not, but the leadership of a lot of American institutions doesn't particularly like the bottom-up movement that has happened over the last 5 years. But they're kind of caught flat-footed by it. They don't know how to respond to it, and they're scared of it. It was
I don't understand what she's talking about. What is the bottom-up movement that the elite don't like? And is she part of this? Is she claiming to be part of bottom-up?
Right. This is what's so fascinating about this here, is she's trying to convince us all now that she's just one of us, but also is calling it...
Notice the through line. It's like Jon Stewart calling out the media for creating dehumanizing division. Do these people not think that we can't see them? It's Fred and Heather telling us how we don't need experts. It's all the same today.
This is exactly my point, right? There was one thing that I'm wanting to get to where she talks about how Barry Weiss is a true dissident, right? And I hope I didn't pass it. Let's listen for just another minute or two, and then if it's not there, we'll just wrap it up and be done. Because
first time I found myself on the other side of Twitter, basically, because I had only been on the good side of Twitter. I'd been part of canceling people. I'd been like a good soldier. And then all of a sudden, I was getting smeared for a...
Right, I know.
Bragging about canceling people?
This is my point.
This is like a Nazi bragging about how many people it's murdered. What a psycho.
Right, okay, listen. Right, she's like basically saying, I did all the right things. I canceled all the people. How dare you be offended by what I'm saying, right? Okay, here we go.
Whoa.
Story, and people I knew, people I'd had dinner with, were tweeting that I was a fascist or that I was spreading disinfo, or it was crazy. It was like my head started spinning from it.
So you found yourself on the wrong side of, what do we call it, received wisdom, high status opinion.
And very quickly I realized, I mean, it was between doing that reporting and then I started dating Bear. And it was like things were over for me real fast after that.
This is Barry Weiss, your wife and co-founder of the Free Press, just so we, again, if any of our audience don't know who Bear is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I started dating a known dissident.
That's all.
What?
Right?
Wow, she's taking her talking points from Brett, our COVID dissident.
Right. I mean, but this has to be possibly the most delusional thing that I've heard all year.
She's got to be on something. She was also weirdly happy and effervescent.
Right.
Like, you would think she'd be pissed, but the way she was telling the story, it's like, and then they bought me ice cream, and then they took me to the carnival. Ugh.
In the next segment of the story, she starts talking about the thing that happened at the Korean day spa where like the trans woman was in there, the Wee Spa, and to hear what she like to see the look on her face and what she sounded like when she was explaining about that he had an erection in the changing room. And the whole thing. For anybody who wants like maximum amusement, go watch that. You guys saw the name of the video is ex-New York Times reporter. The world went crazy. But I find her and Barry. Go ahead.
I want to stay on WeSpa. Was Bear's husband defending the erection being in the women's locker room?
No, I didn't get to finish listening to the whole thing because I was working on this right before we got started. They were kind of talking about the absurd parameters of that whole story and whatever it was, but no, she wasn't defending it. But this Barry Weiss and Nellie Bowles like might be one of the most disturbing, strange, like I don't know what this is, couples ever, and the amount of power and investment that this couple have right now, and the status that they like, the position that they are inhabiting in terms of like laying out the sort of new quote free speech culture in the United States is terrifying.
Agreed, 100%.
All right, to the chat room to see if anyone has. We've been going a very long time. It looks like we have lots of friends in the house.
Thank you, everyone, for your generous super chats. They mean so much to Emily and me. They allow us to keep going and continue doing this for all of us. So thank you guys for your support. It truly means the world. And thank you, Barbara, for starting it off for everyone.
That's right. So, okay. If anyone has questions, comments they want addressed, all capital letters in the chat room. Okay. So yeah, but that one was like over the top for me. I think she's on the board at this new College of Austin or whatever as well. Like I'm sure
of course she is, because she and Barry do the same thing. They only do the same thing.
They're each other. They're like from the same petri dish at the cloning center, right?
Yeah, although Barry looks a little bit more like an actual woman.
You think?
I was thinking it the whole time. I'm like, this is a dude. And then Nish said it in the chat.
Like,
okay, I'm not the only one who's seeing this.
Yep. Any thoughts on Alex Jones potentially going off air? No, I mean, Masaki sent that to me like right when that was coming in. And like, I looked at it. I'm like, is anyone believing this? Like, is this like, are people actually believing what it was? What I saw looked really silly. So yeah, I don't really have any thoughts. Thank you, Jim Montgomery. Woo!
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim.
All right. So yeah, no real thoughts on that. But I also know that like I've been, listening to Alex Jones. Well, I don't listen to him anymore, but I started listening to Alex Jones like about 20 years ago now. I haven't listened to him in probably 10 years. This is not the first time that he's had like a dramatic, oh my God, something is going to happen kind of moment. Like at a certain point, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like, I'm just bored. I'm bored. And that said, everybody should have absolute free speech, and the charges against him are nonsense. All these things can be true simultaneously. Hi, Shauna. Is there a Jim Morrison in the house? Oh, it's Jim Montgomery with the Jim Morrison picture. I see. All right. Okay. I think we have addressed absolutely everything, because there are no comments, questions, or anything else in all capital letters. And we've been going for a long time, and I'm going to get the last 2 hours of daylight. So I'm going to get out there. Everybody, thank you for hanging. I know this was an extra long one with some tedious clips this evening, but we must document and get on the record the clown show.
Word.
If anybody would like to fund the animation of the Sadie and Emily clown show, you guys know how to do it. All right. Anything else for the folks?
Thank you, guys.
What are we titling this episode?
Oh, well, wait, we just noticed a pattern how they're all the same.
Right.
It's like methinks they do protest too much. But I know you like to do things that we've actually said.
They don't have to be something we've actually said. It could also be something
Bear's wife is a dude.
Bear's wife is a dude. Should we do that?
No. That might get us in trouble.
Yeah. What was the exact sentence she said? She said something about bear. Hold on, let me go back just a second. If any of our audience don't know who Bear is, should we just do who's Bear?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that. What do you think? Let's see. Bear is a known dissident. How about that? Known dissident.
What's the word for people who are claiming, like they're criticizing exactly who they are?
Is there a word for that? There's 100 of you in the chat room. One of you has to know the answer to that question. Is there a number? Number for right? Is there a name for that? But I think known dissident. How about that?
Yeah, known dissident.
Known
Sounds
dissident.
great.
All right, guys, that's all for us. See you next week. Same place.